welcome to today's final session, which is the panel. As mentioned, it's on the theme of evolving knowledge for a changing world. And this is moderated by Madan Rao, who you heard present early this morning. So I will now hand over to Madan, who will be moderating this session.
Thanks, Alec. Thanks, everyone, for joining us over here. Alec, we can't see how many participants there are. Is that 23 or something?
Yes, so far, but I think
so far,
numbers will go up.
So I hope more people will join. While we get started, I thought I'll ask all the panelists to very briefly introduce themselves. I think most people already know who you are, but maybe there are some people who are joining only now. So, Ved, just a few words about who you are, what do you do?
Sure, Madan. Thank you, Alec, and thank you, Madan, for being the moderator of this panel. So my name is Ved Prakash, and I'm the Chief Knowledge Officer at Triance. I have a total experience of 31 years, of which half of it has been in knowledge management, leading the knowledge management teams at Wipro, then CGI, and now at Triance. So that's my brief introduction.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ved. Let's hear from Lochan now. Lochan.
Hi, thanks, Madan. Hello, everybody. My name is Lochan. I'm the Senior Knowledge Manager at Pega Systems. I don't have as much experience as Ved. I have been, at Pega and in the industry for about 15 years now, out of which I evolved into knowledge management just about 2 years ago. But we've been doing a lot of knowledge management without having the title way before that. So that's my quick introduction. But I'm really happy to be as part of this panel of esteemed and distinguished knowledge management specialists.
Great, thanks, Lochan. Welcome aboard. Deepak, tell us about yourself.
Happy to, Madan. First of all, thank you for having me on this panel. My name is Deepak Das, and I'm based out of Bangalore. And I lead the knowledge management practice of Grant Thornton NLP in Bangalore, and been with knowledge management for over 15 years. In fact, Paras and I, we worked together in Accenture back in 2007. And I've seen how knowledge management has evolved over the years. When I started my career, I was managing discussion boards, and here I am talking about generative AI. So that has been really my journey with knowledge management, and really looking forward to this panel discussion. Thanks for having me.
Paras, over to you. I think you're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry. That's the usual glitch of muting and unmuting. Yeah, thanks, everybody. And thanks especially, Deepak, you got me back to those Accenture days, doing discussion boards and whatnot. In fact, in my earlier talk, if you have heard about, I was talking about how whatnot we have done, and from a sidekick to a place where we are actually instrumental in an organization decision making. Knowledge managers have evolved and come a long way. So I'm Paras, and I'm in EY. I'm an assistant director and manage the global and public sector industry, and I've been in knowledge management for almost 15 years now. So
thanks everyone. Yeah, speaking for myself, I've been in this field for about 20 plus years. I remember when online discussion groups used to be Yahoo email groups. So in Yahoo, we had an email group to discuss knowledge management in Bangalore. We used to meet in different people's offices and so on. Luckily, the tradition still carries on. We still have the Bangalore capability up and running in physical, hybrid, virtual modes, and so on. So we have got an hour with us, and I thought we would begin with some of the overall questions and the sort of premise of this panel. The name of this panel is Evolving Knowledge for a Changing World. And we heard some very good remarks by David Snowden, by Ron Young, all of you. I heard all of your sessions early on, etc. And there's a lot of stuff that we can cover in this panel. So I thought the first question I would ask would be on AI, since we just heard a very good keynote about the future of knowledge in the field of AI. Maybe Deepak, you want to talk about how is AI impacting knowledge management at GT, and what are some of your thoughts? You're presenting some use cases towards the end of your session. Maybe you can pick up from there. Deepak?
Definitely, Madan. I think AI at GT is evolving rapidly, as it is evolving every day in the internet world. But when it comes to enterprise, right, things are a lot more different. And for a professional services organization like ours, we are guarded by regulations. Data security, confidentiality are a very important aspect of everything we do day in, day out. So I think there are a lot of great conversations we are having internally in the firm. And I was sharing two use cases, right? So the first use case was around search, interactive search, taking the search to a next level. And that was the most obvious use case we could really come up with. I think our firm's stance right now has been, strictly no for any client work. You cannot use that. But for folks in the enabling side or internal client serving side are allowed to use ChatGPT to do their day-to-day work. Now we are seeing a behavior, a pattern in the behavior of our people. They are coming and demanding, how can I get the same experience internally? So we are actually using that as a use case to move away from traditional search engine, right, where you type in a keyword and you get a list of pages, and then you of all that list you have to pick the one which you think is the most relevant, and then it provides you the information. So I think we're slowly transforming from that to more like a smart snippet technology, where you type in something in your natural language, and this search engine provides you a summary of what you're looking for. To give you an example, let's say you ask the search, I'm a new hire and I'm looking for resources, for learning resources. So it will tell you, here are some of the resources and here are some of the contacts you can reach out who might help you with your new hire onboarding. So it has been a fantastic learning journey for us, and we are just getting started. So,
fantastic. How would you, in your case, in your case, Ved, how would you describe the AI journey in Trans at the moment? Is it still fenced in a certain area, or are you still evaluating it, or in some areas it's well established and needs to be blessed sort of to go ahead? Okay?
So it's a mixed bag, and so it has caught popular imagination only after ChatGPT came into being. But experimentation with AI has been happening much before that as well. So the first phase was about starting with data that is available within applications. So for example, there are applications being managed, the cutting edge applications. There's a lot of content and data being generated within that. And in the ticketing tools also, there is some amount of content that is available. How do you draw insights out of it? How do you identify certain patterns? So some amount of AI has been applied on that. Right. Now with ChatGPT coming in, and as Deepak was pointing out, expectations of employees have gone up, that we no longer want to just ask questions, get some links that you can click and all. We actually want a summary of the responses, drawing upon various resources, both internal and external. So one of the things that we are trying to do is to look at how can we combine the power of ChatGPT with the internal contextual knowledge that is available in the knowledge bases. Right. Now, Deepak again talked about the privacy, security, and regulatory aspects of that content. It could be data or it could be documents, etc. So there again, now some of the ecosystem providers are coming up with solutions where you can build a large language model, a ChatGPT like thing, totally based on the internal resources, right? And then you can have a layer on top of it which can interrogate both the internal ChatGPT and the external one that comes from OpenAI. Combine the results and show using the power of both. So that way you're able to protect your own content, but also get the benefit of what is out there from the larger ecosystem.
Great, that's a great hybrid approach. How about you, Paras? Do you also have a fenced approach, or it's all house, full open house on the air right now?
Yeah, so pretty much like what Ved and Deepak has mentioned, like we are all aware of it. We are trying to be at par with it, but then the expectation, as Ved and Deepak both have mentioned, that it has increased. In all my discussions with my stakeholders, leaders, or practitioners, I mean, they keep talking about what are we offering, how can it be? I mean, everybody needs something, in a package form now. It just need an output, which is readily available, readily used, and they have seen things in the market. So the expectation has definitely increased, but pretty much the same, regulations, legal stuff. So we are also evolving at the same time. It's exactly, but then we are working parallelly with the market. We are still, seeing things where we can put in our minds. We can get things out. There are a few things that we have already done. We are in an experimenting phases. We have released few things, and testings being done. There are a few platforms. We have moved platforms, for example, recently. And then, as Deepak mentioned about the search, we have experimented with different modes of search. How we can be more feasible for our practitioners and leaders. So yeah, we are in the game. We are trying to make sure that we are very contemporary. So yeah.
Great. Thanks, Paras. How about you, Lochan? How would you describe the AI journey in your company or companies that you know of? Any first-hand accounts?
So I've been lucky to be part of Pega. Pega has just released generative AI. In fact, today is our release. So we have this grand event every June where we announce what we're going to release. And we actually have Pega generative AI that is being released to all our customers. So ours is a CRM software. So all of our clients, which is, other businesses, are going to use Pega generative AI to be selling and developing applications for their users. So in that way, Pega generative AI has already been released to the market as we speak, and it's also been widely adopted at Pega. At Pega, we even have an AI lab where generative AI, and we've been in this sphere for quite a long time, including when NLP-based models were developed. We had those to help clients make the next best decision, right? If you need to sell for marketing, then you use our NLP models to be targeting your user bases. So we've been in the market for quite a while, but again, like Ved was telling, ChatGPT kind of accelerated our, market performance, our interest, and our releases too. So when ChatGPT became, famous, we had like hackathons, we had GPT-a-thons. So it was widely embraced and everybody was enthusiastic. And then slowly we started curtailing because we are not able to, we had some restrictions like how Deepak, specified, when we shouldn't be doing coding. Ours is a low-code, no-code platform anyway, so we have very minimal amount of coding, but there's a lot of behind-the-scenes coding that we got to do for our clients to be able to develop their no-code, low-code applications. So even for those, we are not supposed to be using ChatGPT. So we had some restrictions where we had to use ChatGPT, but otherwise we got a lot of ideas. And now we have a license. We have Azure for using our AI, and using Azure, we've actually kind of looked through, our internal knowledge bases. And we have introduced something called as buddies, right? It's even available on our chat platforms like WebEx. We have a support buddy. We have a study buddy. A study buddy is where you go and you ask them a question. Okay, find me some training on decisioning, and then it gives you, okay, here are the links where you can find training. So it's basically looking into our LMS platform and giving you the training suggestions. Right? It's going to give you answers, and it's going to give you references from where the answers were provided. And we started doing an assessment. So that was one. We introduced several buddies like, study buddy, sales buddy, and recently my team specifically worked on something called as a support buddy. So my team works very closely with the support teams and the cloud engineering teams. So support buddies, we actually used it behind the scenes for our online forum, where the moderators of the forum used to, ask client-posted questions to our buddy, the support buddy, and the support buddy used to give answers and references, the links to where it found the answers. And then the moderators used to take that answer and post that on our forum, and always with a disclaimer that I have used AI to be generating this answer. So we had to be transparent, and we had to tell our clients that we're using AI, but we still haven't introduced our AI buddy to our clients directly because we're still kind of in the final stages of testing. So far, 80% has been positive results, and the negative results is not really harmful enough to the company, but we're still, being very pragmatic about using AI and basically opening it up to our clients. That's our stance on how my team and we specifically are using the generative AI internally to Pega, but otherwise Pega is offering generative AI to all our clients.
Great. Thanks, Lochan. I need my coffee buddy right now, but since you mentioned buddy, I thought I would also ask you, do you need, this is my next question actually to all of you, which is now people are talking a lot about AI as a co-pilot, as a development partner, coding partner, business partner, business coach, and so on. So do you think we need separate AI buddies or one AI buddy which can be someone we talk to for professional reasons, some for personal, and so on? Maybe Lochan, you can start with that.
We can have one buddy, but yeah, but the information overload, like we talk about the abundance of information, it's while we're doing with experimentation, it's good to have these focused AI engines working on focused content, but eventually it has to be integrated, right, to give like that one single experience, right? It has to be integrated at some point. But because we're working with smaller models, we want to make sure the models are tested enough number of times. So we're targeting specific areas like support content, like learning content, like sales content, and we're targeting specific user bases. Like I'm a specialist at support content, so I'll be testing the support buddy, right? If I'm part of sales, then I'll be testing the sales buddy. If I'm part of the learning platform, I will be testing the learning buddy, the study buddy. So that's how we kind of the divide and rule, but eventually we have to conquer all, and that's when we'll come up with one true solution that is great for all of it. But I'm not sure about 100% great, but close enough is good enough.
Great, thanks. In fact, let me tell that question to our other three speakers now. Do you think AI is making knowledge more active? In the sense, there are all these passive knowledge bases out there, and we go and access knowledge assets, we search for them, etc. So far, knowledge is something passive out there, and we just go dig into it and pull it out and so on. Is AI now making knowledge more active? So this knowledge is coming to me and saying, hey, you forgot to do this in your last task, or don't forget to call this other customer after you called this particular customer. So are we seeing these kinds of agents becoming more smart and knowledge becoming more active? Paras?
No, I would say it's more of a companionship. So like the way I remember you spoke about the recommendation thing, right? So you have something, Amazon did that, you recommend along with that. So I think it's companionship. You need to do it. You need to use it you need to enable it for your own good. I think it's more of a integrating both of it and doing it.
How would you feel? Are is Trans using a lot of these agent kind of things to operationalize passive knowledge?
I would agree with what Paras was saying, that it's like a co-pilot for the work that you are doing. But at the same time, when you look at predictive analytics coming into picture, where it is actually giving you insights into, say there could be a point of failure and you need to take action on that. So those kind of recommendations are also coming because of use of AI. Now it's up to the end user to really act on those, look at the data points that have been provided or the insights that have been provided, and take a decision on that and act on it. But are they automatically triggering anything? That's not happening. However, if you look at a branch of AI called RPA, the robotic process automation, there are a lot of these small bots being built into the processes. Now, they are basically taking away the human intervention part of it. Based on certain preconditions, they automatically trigger certain actions. So RPAs, there are, for example, I'm working with an organization outside of Triance, where they have a lot of these critical business processes, and they've created approximately 1,200 bots, which do these very small pieces of work. But the human intervention has gone away. The accuracy of it is far higher. The productivity is far higher. So I think it is something which is a combination. And if you look at what Paras was talking about, so there is a Copilot that was already available for GitHub, what Microsoft has now been branding as a Copilot for anything that you are doing. So while you are coding, you can always take the help of your own coding chat GPT to check your code. Is it bug free or not? Or you may actually see, by the way, my son is a startup entrepreneur, and I've seen him building platforms. And I have seen him use chat GPT for creating certain elements of the platform. So I asked him, do you trust the accuracy of that? He says that no, I don't trust it at all. But at the same time, instead of me thinking through certain areas, I mean, he can't be competent in every single aspect of, say, a platform, a SaaS platform development. There are far too many aspects out there. So he says, I get a direction through ChatGPT as to in which direction can my thinking process go. But after that, he does his own research to implement anything. Right. Similarly, if you look at sales and marketing, today the collaterals are relying very heavily on ChatGPT-like constructs. Even though it still hasn't been integrated with the organizational knowledge, they're still two independent pieces because it's evolving, but they're getting sufficient direction, I mean, it's so creative. We said that creativity will be the last thing that will go away because of machines, but that probably ChatGPT has proven it's one of the first things that's going away. It generates taglines, it generates the entire copyright that you want in a particular collateral, and it's doing it beautifully. So I've seen them using that, right? So in the past, for example, we have this CII Global Knowledge Summit. It's an annual event. Many of you do participate in that very actively as speakers, as organizers. We generated the entire agenda using ChatGPT because the theme was KM and generative AI. So yes, things are evolving, and it's more than a buddy now. It's sort of a must-have kind of a thing.
Well said, Ved. How about you, Deepak? Has AI progressed to the level of a must-have already in GT, or it's still at a buddy becoming a mentor kind of thing?
Madan, I think I would say it is cautiously evolving because of the regulatory nature of our work. And I think we talked about combining external chat GPT and internal chat GPT. I think our focus is really on building a system which is on top of all our internal systems. So I don't think we have matured enough to expose this systems to outside world. Because that brings a lot of ethical and legal dilemma, right? To give you an example, we do have a ton of research tools which our professionals use to serve the client. Now, imagine if we are tapping onto those research tools and somebody uses some information to serve the client, and it turns out to be a wrong information, not so accurate information. And tomorrow a client comes and start asking questions, you don't really know whom do you go back to, who you hold accountable. So these are the things which I think our firm is broadly looking at, and that's why we are cautiously watching this space and taking one step at a time. And a lot of our focus is still internal. And in the morning, I talked about understanding the content maturity of the firms. I think that's where we are starting. Once we assess that maturity, our next step would be to integrate those different platforms with generative AI and start getting insights out of them. So that's where we are. And I think to your previous question of are we going to see more specialized chat GPTs? I think my vote is yes, right? For a business like ours, we are definitely going to have one common chat GPT for day-to-day insights. But for for our practitioners, let's say in the tax regulation are so complex. When a new tax regulation comes up, it has pages and pages and pages of text in it, right? And it takes a lot of time for our tax practitioner to really understand and summarize it. So I do feel strongly that there will be a time when there will be ChatGPT and someone goes and asks, hey, can you summarize this regulation for me in the context of my client in this region, in this industry? And it gives you very specific guidance, which you might be able to use it and apply in your engagement.
Yeah, Great. So I've got a couple of of questions from the panel. We're about halfway through, but I want to open up right away to the audience for questions. You've been very patient. I really would have loved a physical kind of event where we walk around and meet and chat over coffee, but I want to give you guys who've been patiently listening for the whole day. We're back to those pandemic days of sitting for the whole day for a conference. Anyway, any questions, just type them in the chat window. I thought I would share with you a link. I love to collect quotes every week, quotes about AI and knowledge and creativity and so on. Here's a link, you can check it out afterwards, but hopefully this will provoke you to ask some questions. My next question for the panel is, we heard two very good sessions by Ron Young and by David Snowden talking about the human part of knowledge exchange, human networks, informal networks, and so on. And we seem to be bringing up all these issues again at the time of the pandemic, back to virtual mode. When people are talking about should we go home, hybrid work, how many days a week, etc. So my question for you, each of you now is, where is the human element in knowledge work in your organizations at the moment? What are some of those very human social things you're doing, which is not yet something which can be done by a machine? Maybe Deepak, you want to start? How human is CAVE in your organization today? And what is it so human that AI could never take it away? Maybe something like that.
It's a great question. You know, the more I think about knowledge management, I've started to realize that we really are in the business of building habits, right? And what is that habit we are building? We want our people to think about knowledge systems when they need information and where they are stuck with a problem. Today, what happens? They think of Google, and somehow Google has helped them build that habit. So I think we are competing with a system like Google, but we don't have that kind of resources. So we really need to find unique ways to get closer to our users. And one way, and I always try to encourage my team to think beyond what the business is asking. So when we talk to the business, there are a couple of people who represent that business and who will tell you the business problem, right? But if you go beyond that business problem and start talking to the users who are going to ultimately benefit from the solution, you learn a ton, right? You get a ton of feedback. In fact, we get a lot of negative feedback, and I'm a huge fan of those. In fact, I tell my team that if somebody is giving you negative feedback, sit down with them and understand. And that is the human piece, right? Which I don't think AI can replace. You sit down with this individual, ask them what else do you need, where do you see gaps in the way we are approaching knowledge here, and that gives us a ton. Now, the other piece which we are trying to do within our firm is to build those network, right? We are still, I think, early in the maturity stage. We are trying to build those network and take advantage of the one-on-one relationship, which I don't think any AI can take away from us.
Great, that's very well said. How about you, Rick? What is the most uniquely human part of CAVE in your organization? You shared some great examples of your knowledge festivals and so on. So I think that's one example, but can you dig into that a bit?
Right. So yeah, in the morning I talked about culture building where people are centric to the whole thing. Now, specifically, since we were talking about generative AI and its adoption in the organization, that's actually making people come together even more, because this is something that is evolving. This is something where there is no tribal knowledge. Everybody is learning from everyone else, right? So there are communities that are emerging, and that those are beyond the organization as well, where people are having very healthy exchanges. And the second thing that I'm seeing is that the importance of having the domain knowledge has gone up manifold. Right. Earlier, you could carry out your task without understanding in depth about the industry or the domain you are working in. But now, for the generative AI models to work, right, you do need that deep domain knowledge to be made available to those, constructs that you are creating. So I'm seeing there is more of a move towards either acquiring that domain knowledge or creating that domain knowledge from scratch. Right. So that is again something that I'm finding, and it's very funny because this is something I've been trying for lot many years in the past. It's only now that they are doing it willingly, only because they want their AI models to work better. So I think from a technology perspective as well as a domain perspective, it's bringing the people together. But yes, once the solutions are rolled out, I don't know how things will pan out. Probably there'll be newer use cases emerging where humans have to be more in touch with each other.
How about you, Paras? You're a big global giant firm. What is the human face of game and how would that not change?
See, the human touch, I mean, I would agree on one very important point what Deepak mentioned is about the relationship. And I am a very big advocate of when we talk about knowledge management and talk about building, the first connect, that's the relationship making. And unless and until we do that in any of the, I was earlier talking about the whole knowledge program, implementing a knowledge program. The first, when we identify, the first thing how we identify is to talk to the stakeholder, find out, what is the pain point, these things, and what Ved also said about culture. So these things cannot be, at this moment of time, I don't think can be taken away without a human interaction, right? So that's one very important thing that I would say that we'll not be able to, I don't see it going away at this point of time, or anybody being able to take it away. That relationship building, the networking, and I tell everybody, that the kind of business and the kind of work that you can generate with a mere stakeholder connect is enormous, right? I mean, you get a lot of stuff. You not only get just to work, you also get into that personal space where the next thing is building trust, right? I mean, that's what that it builds trust when it comes from you as a knowledge manager. So that's one thing. Second thing, I spoke about the turtle thing. What I totally believe in is the adaptability. The knowledge managers you can which requires, and we can do it, it's evolving, your topic of evolving knowledge, changing world. So the only thing that we need, the main thing that we need is the adaptability. We should be able to adapt it, and that's something that cannot be taken away. So we are quick, we should be able to gauge what the situation is, should see where the changes are coming, how the changes are coming, and then we should be able to adapt it. And that's something which I don't think somebody would be able to take away at this moment of time. That's the human element which should be there.
Great, thanks. How about you, Lochan? Lochan, what's uniquely human about your game practices and what will not change no matter what AI does?
AI cannot read the room. I can say that. I mean, it takes a lot to be, humanly connected, to be able to read the room, get the message, and it's also not so great with strategies, right? You cannot use AI. It can assist you with, developing a strategy, but it's not so good at creating strategies itself unless you're feeding it most of whatever the strategy is. So those are two things that I really think is something that we will have to continue. And how we keep up with all of the changes with AI is being adaptable, being agile, constantly changing how we do our work and how we're helping our organization.
Great. Let's turn to the audience questions now. They're coming in. I can see only 4 or 5 questions. We've got about 20 minutes each and 4 of us. So let's try to move fast with the questions. In a world of constant change, how can organizations ensure that the game strategies remain agile and adaptable? So any responses to that? Maybe you can give a couple of quick examples of how did your game strategy change during the pandemic or now during the rise of AI or because of climate change, these kinds of things. Any responses? Where do you want to start?
Sure, Madan. I'm just reading the question again in a world of constant change. So I think knowledge management strategy should necessarily be aligned with the business priorities. So that by very definition then means that KM strategy has to be agile. So when the pandemic struck, for example, or there is a technology disruption that happens, some of the business priorities also change, where the dollars of investment go in creating new products and services. So KM has to make sure that they are supporting that change in alignment too. So that's where agility comes in. And the other thing that I have always followed is that experiment fast, fail fast, and move on, right? Because I think Lochan, you mentioned about how it is sort of non-destructive in a way. Whatever we do in KM is non-destructive. It doesn't impact the end customer or the end user because we are enabling something within the organization or within the ecosystem. So it gives us that flexibility to try out things. In different contexts, you apply the same thing in different ways. So we have that liberty and we should make the best use of, being agile.
Deepak, what's your response? How to remain agile?
I think I agree with Ved. And the other day, Ved and I, we were talking. an advantage of being a knowledge management professional is if you have appetite to consume information, you are sitting on a pile of great information about your organization. So if in our organization, if you go and talk to, let's say, an audit professional, they know only about audit, right? They are experts in that area. You talk to somebody in tax, they know only about tax. But a knowledge management professional really knows what's happening across the firm. And that's a huge advantage as a professional. So what it helps, how it helps us is how certain parts of your firms are evolving. If there is any technology disruption, or there is some leadership change, or there is a shift in the strategy, you can immediately connect with your business stakeholders and customers and review your roadmap or your strategy and say, do we need to really change something? So constantly going back and connecting with your business stakeholders and reviewing your strategy is also a smart approach. And always have some space to make some switches and changes on your strategy would also help.
How about you, Paris? How are you bringing agility into your game strategy?
I think what Deepak mentioned, bang on, being close to the business. Like at any point of time, I mean, keep the communication channel open. I think, answering something similar in my session is, keep your communication channel open, make sure that at regular interval, keep checking if everything with the stakeholder, if there's any change of strategy there, and then how you adapt your strategy. One quick example at the granular level, like for example, in the pandemic, when it strike and then suddenly the travel stopped, right? I mean, nobody were able to travel. They were not having the client. We believe that we should be closer to the one of our priority is client, being closer to the client, and keeping client in the center of the solution, and try to resolve a problem, assuming that the client is in the center of the solution, so that you have a very human-centric approach to the problem. So keeping that in mind, what we did is making sure that knowledge management at that point of time was quick to change the strategy to make sure that the documents or materials, how do we make the practitioner who's not able to reach out to the client or the stakeholder, we are able to bridge that gap as a knowledge management, right? So it's not just even aligning the business strategy to your knowledge management strategy, but also being able to be the bridge when there is a disconnect. So I think that's how we need to be adaptable and also being agile to sometimes change your strategies.
Yeah, be resilient, which is what David Snowden also was saying.
Yes.
Companies resilient. Lochin, anything to add to that? How to make KM not ossified, but always keep changing with new business scenarios?
I think all of the points covered so far has been great. Being connected with the business is absolutely essential. Being at top of your own game is also absolutely essential. That means that, you're connected with, other knowledge management practices, professionals, what's happening in this field and what's coming up in this field, and you're able to translate that to your organization and show them how much their business could benefit by taking over and adopting newer knowledge management practices. I think those are the 2 points that I would like to add to this discussion.
There's one more question by Alec, building on the generative AI discussion we had earlier. The last question on the list there. Would you say generative AI currently cannot work effectively without human knowledge to provide prompts and requests based on existing knowledge and experience? Will this change in future? In other words, I guess, can generative AI learn on its own without being given stuff to train on? Can it be out there and pick up stuff on its own and become an entirely new kind of a creature? Any thoughts on that, Deepak? Will we always have to train generative AI and it cannot work without us prompting it so that it can learn how we ask? It's learning from our prompt also, I guess.
In the internet world, this might already be happening, right? So the free version and the paid version of ChatGPT is hugely different, right? The output which you get from the paid version, and I would like to believe that is constantly learning from the latest information which it is tapping onto. But when it comes to enterprise side of things, I think enterprises have just started embracing this technology. So for some time, it will definitely depend on the human knowledge. And earlier in the morning, I talked about giving ample time to train and train your model, by involving different stakeholders across your organization would help further strengthen your AI model, provide you the kind of insights you're really looking for. So in my view, enterprise will still take time for the generative AI to open and so on, but it might be already happening in internet world.
Wait, Paras, Lochan, are you seeing something similar? That it will take some time before Gen AI can strike out on its own?
Yeah, so for example, we talk of prompt engineering emerging as a budding field, where you will have a need for prompt engineers who can frame the required queries to generative AI. Now, I have personally experimented with creating some prompts from ChatGPT itself, and it has done a fairly decent job of it just while playing around. So, there are these things that are possible. The art of possible is definitely there. But yes, the human aspect of it is not going to go away, is what I feel. Because finally, it's only the human mind that discerns between, what gets into the decision-making process, how to judge certain things and all, and that gets into the prompts. So I think generative AI is a great tool to have by the side, but the human element will remain.
Paras, Lochan, you agree?
Yes, I mean, I pretty much agree with. We have mentioned about it, the kind of human intervention that would always be there, especially ethical considerations, right? That is one thing which is very, very, dicey as of now. The ethical part of it, safety concerns. These are the things that still needs to be evaluated a lot. Especially, KM plays a very important role in that. So. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, being ethically responsible for anything that you are developing is something that all of us are responsible for, and I think we should keep that at top of our minds whenever we're talking even about AI. It can get as smart as we allow it to get only. So it's very important. It can go out of our hands. It has gone out of our hands, and that's why being ethically responsible is super critical right now.
And of course,
there is a few minutes left. Sorry, go on, Vedya.
I was just talking about the aspect of hallucination that generative AI is showing. It's sort of creating facts on its own and saying that really confidently. So, for example, there was this famous case of a lawyer in New York who cited precedences which never existed. And he claims that he actually asked ChatGPT to confirm that they are there. And ChatGPT very confidently gave the complete reference, none of which was existing. So ChatGPT can play havoc. So one has to be careful of that part as well. Ethical part of it has already shown political biases, racial biases, and all that we saw even in a thing like Facebook, for example.
Yeah, great. I think you just answered the last question over there, which is coming up with the ethical issues of AI and KM. So yes, issues of bias and those kinds of things, prejudice are there. A couple of earlier questions, traditional knowledge management questions. How can KM help SMEs? So most of us are in large firms or work with very small startups where everything is informal, those kinds of networks. But the medium-sized organizations where they're not too small, they're not too big. So how do these guys fit into the KM world? What can they do in terms of KM? Any tips, advice, or recommendations, or can you point them towards some articles and case studies?
A recent project that we did at Pega. Pega is again like 5,000 employee, and I mostly work with support. So a recent project that we took up is for all of these repeatable issues, for features having the most number of bugs or issues reported by clients. So that was taking up a lot of our volume, our support volume. And what we did is we did some sort of a diagnostic checklist. So we took a direct, inference of how a doctor goes around. They go on their rounds, and for every patient or for every health ailment, you have a checklist, right? You check, okay, is this fine? Is this not fine? Then what should I do? If this is within, the limits, if not, then what should I do? So we took that example from the medical industry and we converted into a diagnostic checklist. We also heavily use troubleshooting checklists checklist for upgrades or updates that we call it now at Pega. So we are going pivotal towards using checklists more and more often and across the organization. So that's something that KM team has been spearheading to a lot of teams inside of Pega. So that's a recent example that I can share.
Great, thanks. So you can contact Lochan for more information. Yes, Paras, you were saying something?
No, I was saying that, a quick observation is in small size or medium sized enterprises, right? I mean, what I would say is there is one quick thing. We need to look at the low hanging fruits. So I think community, from my point of view, is one thing that anybody should be able to do it. A simple knowledge management plan based on communities. Like it can be, it doesn't need a very major setup to do it, but then getting people connected even in a Teams call, even in a you don't have to build a site or something, a regular call to connect, share what people are doing, these things, and build a community, and then which internally builds the trust among each other. I think that's how we can start in a very you spoke about all the C's, right? Out of that, culture is something in a small site enterprise. It's a little problematic area. I understand, because people come from they would not like to share a lot because it's already a small setup. Content is something which is not very often would not like, it's like a small this piece of content, who would I share with, how would even people get help with? It's not a major piece of work. But the other C about the community is something that where we can invest. It's not even a major investment, it's just getting people together. So I think that's something we can keep it as a base and start a knowledge plan.
Great. Yeah. Culture and community, that's a great way to end this panel discussion. Alec, any thoughts, any comments from your side? How was day one and what are some of your takeaways?
I think it was a really great session. I found it very thought-provoking, and I think it's given a lot of fresh ideas, and yeah, I really enjoyed today. And a massive thank you to all our panelists and presenters. It's been a super session.
Thanks, Ved. Thanks, Paras. Thanks, Deepak. Thanks, Lochan. Thank you, Alec. And thanks to all the participants for sitting with us for the whole day. Thank you all.
Thank you.
See you all day two.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow. Just a reminder for tomorrow, to make it easy, you can use the same link to join tomorrow's session. If you go back to the joining instructions, it will be the same ones as you used today. We're starting slightly earlier tomorrow. It starts at 9:45 India time, so that's I think about 10 minutes earlier than today. So just what I'd advise is maybe come online a few minutes before. It's going to be a great session again tomorrow. We're going to dig in really deep with some workshops that will be very interactive. And finally, I just wanted to say a really massive thank you to the Unicom team, who are working away in the background and have been for many months in planning and preparing and running the event. So this is some pictures of the team. You may have interacted with them along the way. And yeah, looking forward to day 2 of the conference tomorrow. Thank you. And thanks again to all our speakers. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.